Okay, so, thanks again. When taking a look at the attendee list, I think it's just important for everyone to know that's in this room that we have a very big assortment of attendees representing lots of different industries and lots of different, sizes of organizations. We have, small, medium businesses here, and at the same time, we have large Fortune 500 companies here. We have representatives from from the state, and then we also have representatives that are in private companies as well, and all different industries. So I will get to the point of what I'm saying, but this PPM solution that we're going to be talking about is used across many different industries, is used across many different types of companies and many different departments within companies. So if you feel that you have a need for something like this, you're not alone. And the reason why I put this poll up here is because typically one of the biggest barriers when implementing a new PPM solution, this is what this presentation is all about, the biggest barrier is around implementation. So we understand that there's licensing costs, right? You have to purchase the software, and we'll get to the pricing in a second. However, more importantly, there are also implementation concerns and factors. So if we take a look at this poll that we have right here, what we see is so far not a single person has said that they've implemented a PPM solution in a week. Rather, they've never even implemented a PPM solution in a month. And the majority I'm seeing is around 6 months. And we've seen that, and let's see, we have an individual here that says that their PPM solution took around 12 months. And the four attendees have said that they've never done it before. So good. We have a pretty good sample size. And what I'm going to go back and forth on, I'm going to be talking about a Forrester business case that Microsoft sponsored about a year ago. I'm going to make some references onto there. And they're saying that the typical PPM implementation across many different types of organizations are typically 8 months in size. So the purpose of this webinar is, let's talk about how can we bring this PPM implementation faster. Instead of doing it for 12 months, instead of doing it for 6 months, how can we get it done in a week? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So thanks everyone again, and what you see right here is a basic word chart, I guess, if you will, that kind of talks about all the different features and benefits that you could possibly get from a Microsoft PPM solution. And we're going to be talking about Microsoft PPM as the solution for project and portfolio management within your organization. So as you can see, there's a lot of buzzwords out here: governance and transparency, automation, demand management, business intelligence, and scalable factors, being able to collaborate and have work management and portfolio planning and being flexible. These are all components that you should expect out of your Microsoft PPM solution really from day one. And let's just get into it. So let's talk about the agenda and some of the specific points that I hope to cover today. So we'll do some basic introductions. I'll tell you about Trusted IT Group and some of the things that we do. I'm not going to spend too long on that. I'm going to then shift over some of the major shifts that are happening in the project and portfolio management industry, which is ultimately causing Microsoft PPM to really take a place in this in the market. At the same time, what we're going to talk about is the business benefits. So I'm not going to get too deep on the technical aspects of how to set it up. What we're going to talk about is what are some of the key considerations so that your business can benefit from implementing Project Online from day one. We're talking, what can you get the biggest bang for the buck in? And that's one of my main features today. At the same time, we're going to talk about the solution foundation. So here I'm going to go a little bit more technical. I'm just going to take one step deeper from the business benefit. We're going to talk about the actual solution, the actual Microsoft project solution, and what are some of the foundations, what are some of the key considerations you should be thinking about within this first deployment that we're going to make our claim in 5 days. In 1 week deployment, what is this foundation supposed to look like? And then of course we're going to open up to some questions. And the way that I'm kind of structuring this demo is I'm going to go back and forth with these PowerPoint slides and actually show you a live version of Project Online and how this, you know, business benefits and solution foundation, how this actually looks in the solution, so that, you know, you can get a good picture to the things that I'm saying. So 5 seconds, I'll just tell you about us, because, you know, we do have some new faces in the room, and, you know, again, I can't say this enough that I do appreciate everyone for signing up and spending at least an hour a month with me. So that's great. So just a little bit about us. We are a Microsoft Gold partner in the project and portfolio space. I would say that you can categorize us based on these 3 points. One, our thought leadership. We're constantly presenting at local, national, and international PMI conferences, as well as Microsoft conferences. We have Microsoft PPM solutions and services. I'll talk about them in a second. And then application support. We have this really great managed services that allows phone, email, remote on-site support, 24/7, no cap of hours. You know, if you have a question, you reach out to us, and we have a response time within 4 hours. So I'll tell you about that also. So some of the solutions, just to, you know, I'm just going to give this one slide, and we'll keep on moving. So we do Microsoft PPM implementations. We'll be talking about a couple of the solutions that we offer within this webinar. Microsoft Project Integration Solutions. If you've seen some of our other webinars, we've been doing Agile integrations, ERP integrations, finance integrations, sales integrations, all of those systems flowing into the Microsoft Project server on the cloud, on premises solution, giving you that portfolio roll up that the PMO really needs to understand and have that one source of truth. Business intelligence, lots of different ways to get business intelligence, from Power BI to SSRS reporting and Excel services. The managed services that I spoke about earlier, as well as Microsoft Project Training and PPM and OCM coaching as well. So again, I'm going to send you this slide afterwards. So okay, let's get into the content now. So the major shifts. Basically, what's your focus? It could be all 3 of these focuses, or it could be just one particular focus. However, there are 3 major shifts that are happening in our industry right now, which is causing rapid change. The first one is tech innovations. Now, it's fair to assume that technology has helped us do things better. It makes us productive in so many different aspects. So, as a matter of fact, I did a presentation at the PMI Central Mississippi chapter about half a year ago, I believe it was, and I spoke about the history of project management. And, you know, project management is at the very core of it. It's basically just an organized series of tasks to get something done. And I found this really neat slide online. I didn't post it on here, but I found this really neat slide, you know, talking about all the different projects from, you know, just a basic timeline. We're talking about, you know, the Great Wall of China and how something like that was built, and how they organized it and put it together. And they didn't have these type of technological advancements that we literally have today. So as the time progressed, our technology allowed us to do things better and more efficiently. So there was another webinar that we did that talked about unleashing PPM into the cloud. And when you think about it, large organizations, large Fortune 500 companies that we know that we work with are using Microsoft Project Online. All they do is they just pay a license. You just pay, you know, whatever amount to get that software up and running, which is a very nominal amount per person. Obviously, the larger the organization, the more licenses you would need to buy, but we'll just pick on the licensing cost. It could be very comparable to the licensing cost of a small business, even a 10-person business. So when you think about it, the large organizations now, because of tech innovations, the large organizations have the same exact software that the smaller organizations have, which means that competition is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and that gap is getting smaller, and that's leading to more tech innovations so that we could do things better and more productively. And I hope to show you that in this presentation. At the same time, there's multiple delivery methods which are happening. There's, you know, waterfall methods, there's agile methods, and then there's, you know, sub-agile methods, and then, you know, some organizations call waterfall and agile water scrum falls, and all these different types of delivery methods. So, you know, there's lots of new project management styles to get your project done. Not talking about the tech innovations, just about the way that we deliver projects. There's a lot of different things that are spinning up. And at the same time, we have this increasingly demand for project managers. The project management industry is finally getting the credit that it deserves. I mean, if you take a look at, I believe it was something like Obama's last bill that he signed was that any government project had to have certified project managers on there, and if they're not certified, then they need to go through the certification process. It just further establishes the respect that project managers deserve to get, and also it just completely reiterates the fact that project management as a, you know, as a practice is really here to stay, and it's getting more and more and more in demand. So Microsoft has been doing Microsoft Project for, you know, so many years. There was a stat that I presented in a previous webinar, and this was probably, you know, a couple years ago, saying that there's over 20 million Microsoft Project standard users. I mean, 20 million users is a lot, and, you know, they're project managers, non-professional and professional alike, and that number is growing and growing. So all of this really combines everything all into one when you take a look at these new advancements that Microsoft PPM has to offer. So taking it one step further, if you were to implement a PPM solution, and let's just take our Microsoft hats off for a second, and we'll just talk about just in general. If you implement a new solution, what is it that you can expect to see? So the first thing is that you'll expect to see, and you'll be able to improve your visibility. You should be able to have standard processes for tracking and measuring the progress of projects, and also see the status reports. Reduction of risk. You should have ongoing risk assessments on a continual basis. You should be able to see what your pipeline is, you know, between the demand and the supply. You should be able to maximize your value. So we all know that we need to do the projects that get requested of us, but how many of us actually know what's the right project to do? How many of us actually align the projects with the overall strategy of the business and come up with some really nice concrete data around that, letting us know, you know, which projects we should move forward with and which projects we should put on the back burner for a later time. And then, of course, effective delivery. Your PPM solution should be able to have this effective delivery regardless of delivery method. Remember, we're talking about, that's one of the hot topics right now. So we'll get into that. And another thing is, you know, I'm going to keep bringing up this Forrester business case. So what were the top priorities for companies introducing a PPM solution in their organization? And this is from an organization that didn't have a PPM solution to one that implemented a new one. And as you can see, that 47% of the attendee, or of the survey respondents, said that 47% said that they wanted to improve their operational efficiency in managing projects, that all of the solutions should be able to do. The next biggest one is to be able to gain visibility to project performance and then improve the business agility and scalability and improving resource management. So those are all things that you should be able to expect literally from day one. Okay, let's get into some of the Microsoft PPM foundation. Here's some of the solution foundations and some of the business benefits. I'm going to combine all that into one. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is access. What do you need to do when you're considering access and security and notifications? Those are all things that could be configured the right way to show you the right information. Same thing as project and portfolio management data. So you have opportunities to create a lot of different custom fields. I'm going to explain what that means, and a lot of lookup tables. All of that becomes reportable data at the very end of the day. So again, I'm going to put more emphasis around that in the next coming slides. Resource management, we're going to cover some of the resource management considerations. So you have your team members. Now, how can you properly manage those team members, those resources, so that you're not overbooking, so that you have really quick and efficient ways to sort through what could be, a large resource pool. And then, of course, the reports and dashboards. All this work is good, but you need to be able to report on things quickly and efficiently and without having to, spend 40, 50 hours, a month, and it could be even more, just generating reports. Should all be automated. Okay, so let's talk about licenses for just a quick second, because this is probably the first consideration that needs to be made, is what license to purchase. So these prices are what you would find online. You most likely are working with a Microsoft representative. If you're not and you wanted to know who your Microsoft representative is, please send me an email and I'd be more than happy to provide an introduction. So these are prices that you would see online, and let's just talk about them for just a second. So there's 3 types of licenses as of August 1st. The first one is Project Online Essentials. It's the lowest level of license that you could purchase, but it's also, I'm going to show you in the next slide, it's also the most on a number basis, most organizations purchase more of these licenses than any others. And that's because this license gives the team members the ability to update their tasks, receive their task notifications, and enter their issues and risks in these project collaboration workspaces. I'll show you all that. And then they can also, if you enable timesheets, we'll talk about that consideration. If you enable timesheets and you assign a team member a specific task, that task shows up on their timesheet and they can submit time against that task. They can also submit time against non-project tasks as well. They can also go onto this collaboration workspace and share documents, and they can also use some of the other Office 365 suite of products, if you have that, such as Skype for Business, to be able to communicate. The next tier up would be the Project Online Professional. And now, ever since August 1st, Microsoft Project Professional comes at no additional cost with this license. So just for those that may not know, Microsoft Project Desktop Application comes in 2 forms. It comes in Microsoft Project Standard and Microsoft Project Professional. Microsoft Project Standard works on your hard drive on the computer that it's installed on, and you save your MPP files and projects right there. Microsoft Project Professional Desktop Client actually connects to the server in the cloud, or the server if it's on premises, and you can save your MPP files in the central repository so that everyone sees it. I'll explain what that is. But basically what this license, this middle Project Online Professional license, gives is the ability to create projects, do resource management, do a lot of administrative functions, so you get more usability than Project Online Essentials. The next tier up would be Project Online Premium, which throws in everything that we just spoke about, plus the ability to do portfolio analysis. So if I go on to the next slide talking about what Forrester said, just to give you an idea, and in red is probably what we want to focus on. So just really quickly, what they did was they interviewed all sorts of organizations all over the world, and then they chose 4 large organizations that kind of gave them a good representation of the sample size. And then they combined those 4 and created averages that they called their composite organization. So from that composite organization, what they found out is around 70% of their licenses came from what used to be Microsoft Project Lite, but that's that Project Essentials that I was just talking about. So when you're doing your budgeting and planning, you would probably want to plan for the majority to be your team members, your Lite users. Next, we're going to talk about access permissions. We're not going to spend too much time on this because I do want to allocate a good amount of time for some of the demos. But again, everything I'm going to show you is everything is out of the box. So out of the box, you have 2 different permissions modes. You have SharePoint permission mode and project permission mode. It could be really easily summarized like this, that SharePoint permission mode has pre-made groups that you just put users into these groups, and they have those specific permissions, and then you can configure what these particular SharePoint permission mode groups, what they see and what they don't see, and what they access and they don't access within the environment. Project permission mode, just really simply, it gives you the ability to create custom groups. So you can slice and dice it as much as your imagination could handle. We do recommend, though, not to get too intricate with it, because then you have what they call a lot of, spaghetti permissions, where there's a lot of lines that are intersecting. So, if you have questions around what type of permission works best for you, you can always contact me. We'll talk about that offline. But again, I'll send you this slide afterwards, and it'll show you, basically, what features come with SharePoint permission mode and which one comes with Project Server permission mode. Project Server permission mode still is the same thing in Project Online. So some of the other access notifications that you could expect from day one is that from day one, you should be able to set up a reminder so that from a personal perspective, if you're a team member or just you want to see you personally, you can get a reminder before your tasks start, right to your email. You can get an email, send a reminder before the tasks are due. You can get a reminder about incomplete tasks. You can get a reminder when you receive a new task assignment for your projects, or when somebody else modified a task that you're on. You don't have to now go over to the next person and ask what's going on, or have a new meeting, or maybe pull up a new document that tracks these changes. I mean, you could, but it's a lot simpler just to get a notification through email that's automated. You can even customize the message that it says. So that's a personal. Then managers could also get a notification of the groups that report to them, for example. So let's say that someone from your team that reports to you submitted a new task. You would get a notification on that. Somebody assigns a task to someone else. You get that notification. Somebody changes a task, etc. So again, you are constantly automating these type of messages and making things a lot easier. Okay, now we're going to get to some of the fun stuff. Now we're going to get to custom fields. Custom fields could arguably be one of the most important aspects to this PPM solution implementation, because these custom fields that you have there, it will literally be able to report upon later on down the road. And if your information is correct and it makes sense and it's configured the right way, all the reporting is pretty flawless. So you have 2 different types of you have different types of custom fields. You have type and entity. They could be at the following levels. You can have a project level custom field, you can have a task level custom field, and you can have a resource level custom field. And I'm going to actually give you examples in the demo about what these 3 level fields look like. So when you're configuring these custom fields, you also have the ability to determine what's in those custom fields. So you can have a single line of text. Maybe that's like a project title or something like that. Or you can have multiple lines of text. Maybe that could be used for a description of a project, or maybe a section of a project charter, or maybe you want to talk about your business objectives. And then you can also have a lookup table or a calculated formula. Let's say that your finance team wants to know the MPV of a particular project and some of the aggregated costs. So that could all be done within custom fields. At the same time, each custom field could also belong to a specific department. So if different departments require different fields, that can be configured as well. And at the same time, if you don't configure a department, like a marketing department or a legal department, to a custom field, that custom field goes across the entire organization, or as they say over here, goes across the entire server. So then you can also choose whether you want data to show in this custom field or if you want it to be represented through a graphical indicator. And I'm going to show you what that could look like. But that's basically, you know, everyone's favorite red, amber, green indicators or something along those lines. Could be used to signal project health or late tasks, for example. And also custom fields could also be controlled by a workflow. Now, for those that don't know what a workflow is, a workflow basically defines a project lifecycle, or it defines, you know, an approval gate. So when something happens, then something else happens. That's, you know, a very basic definition of the workflow. So it could be said that certain custom fields only come up, only populate based on a particular type of workflow setting. All right, so we have about half hour left, and we're going to get into some of the demo over here. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is project level fields. And in these project level fields, excuse me a second, let me just plug in my laptop. So in these project level fields, there can be different types of configurations. So for example, you might have a project level field that shows project health. Maybe a project field is objective. Maybe a project level field is cost, or maybe what's in scope for the project. Or maybe you want to put down what's your customer. Or maybe you want to put down what's the value stream for that. So let's get to this demo part. Okay, so here is a live version of Microsoft Project Online. This is our demo environment. And the first thing that I do want to notice, I do want to show you, is that this is our project center. The project center is the central repository of all the projects. This is a good way to view all the projects that's going on in your instance or in your organization. So what you could see right here is your projects. These are your project names. And here are some of these project level fields. You could see a start date is a project level field, a finish date, percent to complete, the amount of work, the duration, the project owner. And let me just zoom out on this chart over here just to give you a view of some of the Gantt chart. So let me just take it one step back, because I do want to explain to some of the attendees that may not have seen Project Online before or Project Server before. So if you're using Microsoft Project Standard and you're saving your MPP files to your hard drive, and you want to know what's the difference between Project Professional and Project Standard, this is basically it. When you have Project Professional and you're saving your project files, it no longer gets saved in your hard drive. Each one of these is a separate MPP file. And you can actually open up, if you see right here, there's a little pop-up that comes up. If I push this button right here, it'll actually open up this project in Microsoft Project Professional. Okay, so let's continue with this example. So we're going to go ahead and actually create a project. There could be many different ways that we can create a project. Some folks want to see, an intake process, and you can create an intake form, something like this. And let's just switch this view into classic SharePoint mode. So for example, this could be project level fields. You might have a department, a title, maybe a description, maybe budget cost is one, maybe benefit estimate is another, your risk level. But for this example, we're going to stay simple and we're not going to create a request. What we're going to do is we're just going to create a project just right from the very simplest form. And you can do that by hitting the project ribbon, going to new, and we're going to create a new product development type of project. And we're going to talk about different project types in just a moment. But here, what I wanted to show you is this is, basically this could be like a request form. This could be your standardization form, and some of these fields, these custom fields that we're talking about, these fields carry throughout the creation of the project. So you can make certain fields required and not required. So we only have the name required. So we're going to call this Accelerate Your PPM Project. And we're going to put a description showing how to implement and configure project quickly. Then we have the start date, and then justification, we'll just do XYZ justification. And maybe we want, let's see, the risk rating. Let's go ahead and add a risk rating to low risk. And I'm going to show you what all this means in a second. But again, this is another project level field. Total cost, we'll say 5,000. Total benefits, maybe 50,000. Project department. Everyone that knows me knows I love the sales and marketing department. And of course, there's other types of fields too. Program name, application portfolio, region, country, city, etc. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and hit finish. Okay, so now we just talked about some of the project level fields. And again, it's important for us to know one thing to accelerate this PPM deployment. I just want to kind of bring it back to the reason why we're here, is that we need to understand what are some of the most important aspects to get started quickly. This is what we're really trying to focus on. And configuration of project level field are critical. Another type of critical field is the task level field. So the task level field we typically see on our project schedules. So some could be task health, another could be task schedule risk, another could be flag status, another one could be a value stream. So where does this value actually, how does it play into the particular task? So I'm going to actually go on to the next one, because before I go back to the demo, what I want to do is I want to get through some of these fields that you're going to see really quick in the next set of demo clicks I'm going to do. So the next consideration after that would be a resource field. And the resource field, it's very simply put on the people that you have in an organization. There's different metadata to collect around those individuals. For example, resource roles. One of the really popular uses of Microsoft Project Online, Microsoft Project Server, is the creation of scheduled templates. So as soon as you create a project, I'm going to show you over here, as soon as we create a project based on an enterprise project type that we just did, the new product development project type, what that allows you to do is, have all sorts of different attributes with that project type. I'm going to show you next. But one of those key features is you can have a scheduled template that automatically creates with generic resources and all the tasks and all the interdependencies automatically created upon the creation of that project. So if you have resource roles configured the right way and you have these scheduled templates that automatically creates with the generic resources in there, you can really simply do skill set matching, which helps out for the resource management. So another one is that if you are managing, resources from across the globe, you may need to have different considerations like team names or maybe country names or something along those lines to help you filter and find the right resource based on different capacities, etc. So one last screen before I go and flip over back to the demo. We just talked about enterprise project types. And why are they so important to this PPM solution is because enterprise project types contain basically these 6 types of different business entities, if you will. So the first thing that they can have is every project type can have a workflow associated to that. So the workflow is the basically the governance of the project phases and stages. Another one would be project detail pages. So a project charter or a schedule could be a project detail page. Different departments, you can associate different project types to different departments. And the schedule template was one that we just explained. A project site is your collaboration team workspace. And the business drivers are also important because that's how you strategically align your projects to the overall strategy of the business. So business drivers could also be considered as like a business objective. I'm going to show you all that right now. So now we just created our project. You remember we created a project called Accelerate Your PPM Project. So as you can see right here, here's some of the project detail pages. So here's one project detail page actually called Project Details. Another one is called Schedule. So I'll click on them in a second. Then you also get workflows with this project type. So off the bat, you get a visual representation where you are in the workflow at any given time. So right now, you know that you are in the initiate gate. And you can add definitions to that. So again, we're striving to standardize the process, and standardization equals scalable factors. So if you want to look ahead and you want to see what are the future workflow stages and what needs to be done, you can very simply just open up the workflow stages and scroll down, and you would be able to see that first we're in the create phase. Then we need to go to the select phase, and then plan, and then manage and measure, and all these are configurable. Everything I'm showing you is out of the box. In order to configure workflows, you just need to use SharePoint Designer to do so. So let's go into our project schedule. And the project schedule, look what happened. I didn't even create this project schedule. It automatically created based on the template that was first set up. And for those that are using Microsoft Project Desktop, as you can notice, the ribbon bar and the project scheduling is almost identical to what you're using on your desktop. And this is all in the browser. So we could do all sorts of things like resource management and skill set matching. This is something else I was talking about. So some of these task level custom fields, like task name, duration, start, finish, percent to complete, work, actual work, those are all out of the box, but there could be specific task level fields that you're looking to report on at a schedule level, at a task level, and that can be configured in this environment as well. So let's go ahead and do a little skill set matching just so I could show you that functionality and a little bit of the resource configurations. So we'll go ahead and build our team, and as you can see right here, some of the resources, generic resources that are on this project is we have PMO, project manager, and analyst. So let's go ahead and build our team. And as you can see right here on the right hand side, we have these generic resources. So let's go click on PMO because we need someone from the PMO to fill this particular task. And as you can see on the left hand side is the resource pool. And we have a lot of people to sort through over here. So what we can really easily do is just hit the match button. We hit the match button, it looks through the entire resource pool, and it shows that from the PMO we have these 3 individuals. We have Diago, Limor, and Sharif. So if we click on all 3 of these, out of the box there's a capacity planning module that we could see who's available and who's not available. And if we look over here, we could see the remaining availability in the form of a bar chart. And if we scroll down, we have more of a, like a tabular view. So Diago, as we could see, we literally see their availability and what projects they're assigned to if they're currently assigned to somebody or currently assigned to a project. So Diago looks like he has full availability, same with Lemore, and we know that Sharif, looks like Sharif is going to be on a project starting on May 4th. So you know what? I'm just going to let Sharif worry about that. And I think I'm going to go with Diago. So then what I could do is I can go back to the build a team. Just check Diago. We're going to hit replace. And then I'm going to save and close. So let's talk about the resource considerations for just one moment. Something that is important from a resource perspective that we see on many different implementations are basically these 6 considerations. So when you're setting up your resources, we do recommend to enable timesheets. I know that this is kind of a culture thing, and some organizations do and some organizations don't want that. However, if you do timesheets, there are a lot of benefits from it. I actually heard this one Fortune 500 company that said that they were not doing timesheets until their CFO demanded it because they can get certain tax credits back. That's something that's a little bit out of the scope of what I could talk about, but I'm sure if you speak to your finance department, they may be able to talk about that. So that also gives you a way to see the value, the cost value per resource, and understand, baseline costs. At the same time, and baseline versus actual costs. At the same time, we also recommend have timesheet managers. So if somebody submits their timesheet, someone needs to approve it. Calendars, you can configure different calendars within the resource pool to show company holidays, that could show different time zones, that could show if you're working with a global team, you might have a team in the UK that takes more vacations than the people in the US do, and that needs to be shown properly, so that if you're assigning resources from the UK and you're in the middle of the US, you need to be able to see their capacity drop based on their calendar. You should also be able to configure resource roles and resource rates. And if you have Office 365 Active Directory, then Active Directory Sync makes this resource pool configuration and setup that much easier. Okay, so let's go back to our project plan. And now if we notice that PMO generic resource is no longer there, now we have Diago. And everywhere where there was a PMO, Diago now is in charge of that. So that's a great way that you could do some of the resource management. So let's go ahead and publish this project. For those that don't know, when you publish a project, what it does is it actually writes to the server, and all those changes and all those pieces of data now become reportable. So publish completed successfully. We're just going to go ahead into this project site. Now I'm just going to show you a collaboration workspace. So this is where your team members live. So remember we were talking about the Project Essentials license, the Project Essential license for the team members. This is their SharePoint site collaboration workspace. So right off the bat, all team members can understand, what are their upcoming milestones? What does the project timeline look like? What tasks are late? What tasks are upcoming? You can even get a view like this and see who is assigned to what. It allows you the opportunity to have discussion boards, enter your risks and issues. You can even have a change request form on here, project documents that everyone can work together on. And again, if you have Office 365 and all the suite of products, you can really simply work on a project charter. You can make all sorts of changes and then go right back to the collaboration workspace. So timesheet considerations. When you're configuring timesheets, there are certain things to keep in mind. For example, your fiscal period, your reporting period, the different classifications, whether you want it to be billable or non-billable work, project or non-project work. You might have different timesheet settings, displaying by unit, by days, by weeks, reporting by hours or days. There's so many different ways to slice and dice it. Same thing with task settings. So One thing to consider moving along to reports and dashboards, that if all the information is utilized the right way from all the fields that we configured earlier, then reporting is a breeze, and you'll be able to have the foundation for accurate reporting. This is out of the box, and it connects to all your information. You can save different dashboards. As you can see right here, you click on this dashboard, and you can create this year's projects, last year's projects, next year's projects, active milestones, etc. You can configure this dashboard to show you project costs by enterprise project type. You get cool little tool tips if you hover over it. You scroll down, you can get the different project departments. It takes some time to actually to refresh. So I don't believe what we created is there. However, it should be there in about 15 or so minutes. It takes around 15 minutes to update. We can go into projects and get information about projects. So we can get information about owner, baseline, finish, variance, cost variance, etc. We can go to tasks, see what are the slipping tasks, some of the work overruns, missed deadlines. We can go to resources. We can go to availability, and we can see our heat map. Again, this is all out of the box. This is all out of the box, nothing to configure. All you got to do is install this from the SharePoint store, and you're up and running, literally in no time. For those that are interested in seeing what status reports look like, so let's go ahead and pick a project. Let's go and pick, let's go to overview. Let's see, what's a good project? We look at the health assessment reporting tool. It looks like it's a variance, looks like we're 1 day over schedule. So let's go take a look at this one. So now if we want to drill down a little bit more, we click on that particular project, and now it gives us information about this project. And we can get our executive summary, which is ultimately our status report. The name of the project manager, percent to complete, start date, baseline finish, when we actually finished, what was the variance, looks like we came in almost on time, current project milestones, etc. Now for those that may want a little bit more functionality and flexibility, let's go back to the project web app, is that you may be looking at Power BI. Power BI, we're going to take it one step further. Power BI allows you to create really visually pleasing reports, and really simple to create, that you can create your own. So this is actually our managed services reporting suite that you get at no additional cost with our managed services. And you could take a look at project status report, and you could take a look at the resources, and you could see that it's all clickable, it's all drillable. All this information changes. We can go to different projects. All the information changes. And what's great about Power BI is that you can export this into PDF. You can go ahead and embed this onto a SharePoint site so that it automatically uploads, and you get all the right information that you need. Resource pool, you could see generic work, generic resources, etc. So all of this, probably still wondering, how can we do this in about a week? So Forrester study, again, implementation of Microsoft Office 365 PPM tools, it took approximately, based on Forrester, around 8 months. So what we have is a configuration wizard that we configure the environment based on very specific framework and best practices that organizations need to get up and running really quickly, without the need of further customization, and they may just need something just to get up and running and get some kind of user adoption and show value really quickly. So we have this configuration wizard that will work with you on to configure access and branding and security, and the project level fields, resource level fields, task level fields, different project types and project templates and calendars and timesheets, resource rates and the list of the individuals and their roles, configure the resource pool for you, We include 2 hours of solution design workshops and a 2-hour training session afterwards, along with setup of that dashboard that I showed you. And that's all deployed within 5 business days. So the implementation cost is low and you have a very quick solution to get up and running with. And from there, you can use the iterative approach to make different changes as business needs required. So you can go forward and do integration services after that, integrate different tools with there. You can create different workflows from there. You can create different templates from there. Add new departments onto the environment. So at the same time, we also like to recommend the managed services along with that. So what you get with there is reoccurring maintenance, that if you are interested in what the managed services provides, it's for Project Standard, Project Essential, Project Professional, and Project Premium customers. And then we also give the ability for unlimited help desk support on a one-to-one training basis for all your users on whatever they're trying to do without any cap of hours. So again, if you have any questions around the managed services or the configuration wizard, feel free to send me an email, daniel.norkin@trusteditgroup.com, where you probably have received already a lot of emails from me and you know how to get back to me. And I really appreciate that. So right now, I know that we're just around our 1 hour mark. I'm going to be hanging out here for as long as the attendees hang out, and I can go ahead and show some more demonstrations. So the official webinar is over. I really appreciate everyone for staying and participating. But I'm going to hang out for a little bit longer and answer any questions. Thanks, everyone.